Listen, the bottom line, Klatt is going to be cranky Joel Klatt today. The bottom line is Alabama would be favored over everybody here, and I think Alabama's going to win this darn thing. I actually do. Well, can't we just be honest? These are the four best teams. Forget qualifications. Aren't these the four best teams?
Well, then why are we playing the games? I mean, you tell me. Why don't we just have Vegas pick the four teams?
You know, that's a question. I'm for that. So, but my problem is everybody's upset with Ohio State. They lost by 30 to Iowa.
Listen, I understand that. So did Georgia. They lost by nearly the same amount when they played Auburn, and they're still in the playoff. And I understand they're a champion, but so is Ohio State. Let's just break this down. There was no good choice for number 4, Colin. So I'm not going to sit here and argue for Ohio State or against Alabama. I don't think there was a great choice. It's one of my reasons why I don't think we should ever expand the playoff, because we're arguing between average resumes at this point, which I don't think is good for the sport. Now, let's get to the committee and let's just discuss all the dishonesty, all the inaccuracies, and the unreliability of this committee, because it is stark. I mean, it's borderline corrupt at this point. The dishonesty is clear. Kirby Hocutt goes out there less than a week ago, and he tells us that it's a razor-thin margin between 5 and 8. Well, that's Ohio State and Alabama. And then all of a sudden, one team sits at home, the other team gets a quality win against an undefeated Wisconsin team, and Alabama's unequivocally better? How? What? Did they all of a sudden watch the film? Were they not watching the film beforehand? It doesn't make any sense. It was a blatant lie from the committee. Then you look at the inaccuracies, right? The inaccuracies are stark. You look at what happens when you compare resumes, and at this point, Ohio State has 3 better wins. By the way, they're 3-1 against teams in the top 16 in the playoff committee's poll. Alabama is 0-1 against those teams. So apparently strength of schedule doesn't matter. And then you talk about the unreliability, okay? They are completely unreliable based on what they have told us over the last 3 seasons. Think about year 1. In year 1, they told us that the championship and a 13th data point was the deciding factor in keeping Baylor and TCU out and including in Ohio State. In year 2, it was the head-to-head matchup, and it was a championship. Michigan State was able to go. Ohio State had to sit home because they didn't have the resume. So in year 3, they had the resume. So they backed off of the head-to-head and the championship because the resume was so good. Remember, Ohio State had 3 top 10 wins. They had beaten the Big 12 champion Oklahoma Sooners. They had beaten Wisconsin in an overtime game on the road in Madison. They had beaten Michigan. That was a team that I thought, well, if you're going to include a non-champ, I can see including that one. Now you get to this year, and all of that is out. Alabama didn't have the 13th data point. They didn't have a championship. They lost head-to-head in a game to Auburn. Auburn's not in. Alabama is. So Alabama's in just because. This is a sponsor's exemption. I love golf, and I love Fred Couples. I love to see him play. But when he plays the Shell Houston Open, guess what? That's a sponsor's exemption. That's exactly what Alabama got in this case right now. I think that the long-term health of the playoff is going to be undermined off of this result. And ultimately, I think that it's at risk. I think it's going to be changed, at least the criteria. And by the way, we should probably stop calling it criteria. Let's just call it what it is. These are excuses. They're going to create excuses to put whoever they want to in this playoff.
Okay, let's just get down to the 4 teams that are in. You got a Clemson, I like them a lot. You got an Oklahoma, I like them a lot. I think Alabama's good. I think Georgia's the weakest of the 4 because they have a freshman pocket quarterback. He's not going to match up with Bama's defense, Clemson's defense, or Baker Mayfield. That's nothing against Georgia.
Right.
I think Georgia's the weakest of the 4. What say you on the strength of these teams?
I would probably agree with you. I think that matchup with Clemson and Alabama is going to be so unique, even though I can't stand when a team loses their last game and still has access to the national championship. I go back to Nebraska getting to play Miami in 01. I go back to Oklahoma in 03, losing the Big 12 championship game. No one enjoyed that. The rematch of Alabama and LSU, no one enjoyed that. So we're going to see something similar here with Alabama getting in. That matchup's going to be pretty good. To be honest with you, I think it's a disgrace that Clemson's got to face them in that ball game. Now, if you look at the playoff era, quarterbacks generally carry the day.
Yes.
Okay? Great quarterback play.
Yeah.
That's why I'm leaning towards Baker Mayfield. I think Clemson's probably the best team, but I think Mayfield is the best player, and he's so dynamic and electric. I wouldn't put it past him to not only beat Georgia, but beat whoever comes out of that Alabama-Clemson matchup.
You know, it's funny about this stuff. I was telling a friend yesterday, I said, let's just say USC had no bye, the most Power 5 wins. They played Texas, Notre Dame out of conference. I said, if they didn't play Notre Dame, USC, and they played Mercer and they won by 40, Sam Darnold would have won 20 of his last 21 games, the only loss on a Friday when they lost 3 offensive linemen. But USC chose to face Notre Dame. Is that a lot of this is scheduling crap? Is that our perception of USC is, boy, they got crushed by the way, Notre Dame at a bye. The students were not in class. I'm not here carrying water for USC. I don't think they're one of the best 4 teams. But they had the guts to put Texas and Notre Dame on. They had no bye. Had they scheduled Mercer twice, we'd be like, Sam Darnold's got to be in. He's won 20 of 21. I think the scheduling's a huge part of this, and USC overscheduled.
Well, listen, I don't think that you should be able to overschedule. You should be rewarded for that. Let's just take schedule makeup, and you've heard me talk about schedule makeup quite often. Alabama played 9 Power 5 opponents. Okay, Ohio State played 11. USC played 12.
Yes.
12. That's 3 extra Power 5 opponents versus what Alabama played.
Yeah, more injuries.
The committee is telling us, schedule Mercer. Don't play. Hey, Ohio State, don't play Oklahoma. Schedule Mercer, because ultimately it doesn't matter if you play those FCS teams. You can still have access. I think it's a total joke. And by the way, the ACC and the SEC, they have got to start playing 9 conference games. That's a huge part of this whole thing. The only 3 conferences now to miss out on the playoff are the 3 conferences that play 9 conference games.
Yes.
The ACC and the SEC have got to step up and start playing a like schedule to everybody else across the country.
Joel Klatt, you know what I love you said, though? Everybody wants to expand everything, like more is better. I love the fact that you said this. Let's stop expanding this thing, that both Ohio State and Bama have flawed resumes. I love that you said that. I really didn't think the old way was terrible. I don't like, by the way, there's going to be no chance to have an 18 playoff, right? That's not going to happen.
It's not on the table. I can tell you that there's only 5 people on the face of the planet that can change the playoff structure to that degree, and that's the 5 conference commissioners of the Power 5 conferences. I've talked with most of them. That is not even on the table. It's not even like, well, we've discussed it, but it's not really something that we're going to lean towards. No. Not on the table. So I think that what we're going to see in the next couple of years potentially is just language change. Rather than 4 best, maybe it's 4 most deserving. Maybe we get to a point, Colin, where it's only conference champions have access to the playoff. I think that could be something that enters into the equation in the next couple of years. If you just take this simple way to fix college football, and I believe I've outlined it on your show once before, but if all you do is get rid of divisions, pit the top 2 seeds in each power conference against one another in the conference championship game, you essentially have 10 quarterfinal teams. Then you say you've got to win that game to go, so you retain the importance of the regular season. You throw out the worst conference champion. That's what retains the importance of the regular season, and you still just have a 4-team playoff. You create huge value in the conference championship games, and guess what else? You create huge value for the Iron Bowl, because all the committee told me yesterday is that the Iron Bowl did not matter.
Yep.
That's what they told me. And I think in my system right there, 5 champions, throw one out, the 4 best go. That's how you actually do this thing right in college football, and you get the 4 most deserving teams in there. Remember, I am tired of rewarding potential and recruiting rankings. If we want to go with 4 best, let's send it to the wise guys in Vegas. Let's let the kids earn it on the field. 4 most deserving conference champions only in this playoff.
Joel Klatt's never been more right than he was today. Great stuff. Love having. You were good. You were good today. You were good. He's sitting between skyscrapers in New York City. Finally came to his senses right next to Wall Street. Good.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from the newest show on FS1, First Things First, with Chris Carter and Nick Wright.